for the House, you've expressed some reservations to the committee around infringement on human rights and civil liberties. What measures or protections does the government need to put in place in terms of this bill?
Well, I think this bill has been carefully drafted. There are a lot of checks and balances in it already. The Law Society's position is there should be a few more. And we've, in our quite long submission, we've tried to reason carefully what the changes that the Select Committee should consider. Some of them are quite technical, but really, in a sense, what we are doing is trying to say there needs to be a little more attention to human rights and liberties here.
Do you think the Law Society has been given adequate time to give the adequate advice to this bill?
Well, we've been given the time that we've been given, and that's a fact of life, and we have to respond to the events.
But is that time long enough?
Well, we've been looking at this since Mr. Key made his speech some weeks ago. We started considering it then. We were given the bill a little early last week. We have been able to do as much work as was possible in the time. More time would be useful. We have responded to the circumstances that we have been in.
And how would you rate the
committee? In rushed circumstances.
Beg your pardon?
You did make the point in there that when legislation is rushed, that things are more likely to evolve.
I've seldom seen legislation that cannot be improved with more time.
Is there such legislation?
I think all legislation is in that category.
But given the significance of this bill and the changes it seeks to implement,
I think that the changes that it seeks to implement are big powers to the state over the citizen. But I also think that we have to respond to what the United Nations has asked us to do.
And how important is the Select Committee process?
I think the Select Committee process is critical. The Select Committee is the one, having listened to the submissions, that will be able to determine what the balance of human rights protections should be. There are human rights protections in this bill now. The question for the Select Committee is, what is the appropriate balance?
And
how
so
concerned would you be if it went through without the changes that you've recommended?
I can't speculate on what the Select Committee will do, and we will have to wait and see what it does.
But would you be concerned if it went through in its current form?
I'm not really going to get into hypotheticals.
Is this far more than a bit of chit-chat?
Well, this is a very serious piece of legislation to deal with a serious problem, and it involves serious issues for all New Zealanders.
As a former Prime Minister, how much evidence should the current Prime Minister be able to give the public in terms of explaining the need for this legislation?
Well, I think that raises very difficult issues for the Prime Minister. Having once been in charge of these agencies, I want to say that you cannot allow security to be breached about what they know and how they know it. Otherwise, you will prejudice their ability to function. And so I cannot second guess what it is that the agencies know. All I can say is that we have been asked by the United Nations to do this, and the Security Council knows a lot, and our own New Zealand Security Intelligence Service undoubtedly knows a lot as well.
Are the video surveillance provisions, and they're not necessary for the UN?
Well, it's arguable that they are not, but on the other hand, we do submit and have submitted to the Select Committee that they should be restricted.
But they're not specifically mentioned in any way by the UN resolution?
No, but on the other hand, the UN is implying and saying that you need to have adequate methods of law enforcement to be able to ensure that you can deal with the people that they want dealt with.
In terms of emergency, you said that sometimes it's appropriate for emergency legislation to be passed in these circumstances. What sort of situations are they?
Well, you can never, I remember once being involved in legislation when I was in the Parliament to stop an American provision of antitrust law being applied to us. There are all sorts of situations where emergencies do arise. But the problem always is, what is the most convenient and easiest way to proceed? And obviously in the run-up to Christmas, the Parliament has a lot of troubles. And I think that we just have to hope that our Parliament and that our Select Committee system will function well enough to defend the principles that need to be defended here and reach an equitable accommodation of them. Now, I don't really have anything else to say.
Thank you.